Welcome to Global Byte. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. In a landmark decision that's sending shockwaves through Washington, Wall Street, and capitals around the world, the United States Supreme Court has delivered a historic rebuke to the executive branch. The ruling, which comes after months of heated debate and anticipation, is being hailed as one of the most consequential in recent memory, with far-reaching implications for the balance of power in American government and the global economy. The Supreme Court has struck down President Trump's sweeping global tariffs, a cornerstone of his America First policy and a defining feature of his administration's approach to international trade. These tariffs, imposed on hundreds of billions of dollars worth of goods, were intended to protect American industries and jobs, but they also sparked trade wars, raised consumer prices, and drew fierce criticism from both domestic and international leaders. With this ruling, the court has dismantled a trade framework that shaped the Trump presidency, sending a clear message about the limits of executive authority. The justices found that the president had overstepped his legal bounds, effectively redrawing the lines of power between the White House and Congress. This decision not only reverses a major policy but also sets a precedent for how future presidents can wield economic power on the world stage. The court sided with critics who argued that the tariffs represented an unconstitutional overreach, harming American businesses, workers, and consumers. Small business owners and everyday shoppers have felt the sting of higher prices and disrupted supply chains, while protests outside the court reflect the deep divisions this issue has caused across the country. This is more than a political defeat for the former president. It's a powerful reassertion of Congress's constitutional authority to regulate commerce and levy taxes. Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle are now debating how to move forward, with some calling for new legislation to clarify the limits of presidential power in trade matters. By invalidating tariffs imposed under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, the justices have sharply curtailed the ability of any president to act unilaterally on trade. This decision is expected to reshape the way the United States engages with its trading partners and could lead to a new era of congressional oversight and international negotiation. The immediate aftermath has already seen global markets react with volatility, as investors and governments scramble to assess the impact of unwinding years of tariffs. Economists warn that the process will be complex, with ripple effects likely to be felt in industries, from agriculture to technology, and in households across the nation. As the legal, economic, and political battles intensify, one thing is clear: the story of law, economics, and power in America is far from over. The Supreme Court's decision marks a turning point, but the debate over who controls the nation's economic destiny is just beginning. To understand the Supreme Court's ruling, we go back to April 2025, when President Trump invoked the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, IEPA, to impose a blanket 10% tariff on nearly all U.S. imports. Originally meant for targeted sanctions, IEPA had never been used for global tariffs. The administration claimed global trade imbalances were a national emergency, justifying drastic action. Critics argued this was an unconstitutional tax bypassing Congress, setting off a fierce legal battle. The tariffs quickly raised costs for American businesses and consumers, while sparking retaliation abroad and deepening economic uncertainty. The legal challenge was led by small businesses, states, and industry groups, all arguing that Trump had overstepped constitutional limits. They claimed IEPA was never meant for broad tariffs, and that only Congress can set taxes and regulate trade. Lower courts agreed, ruling the administration's use of IEPA was too broad and inconsistent with the Constitution. The Trump administration appealed, bringing the fight to the Supreme Court, where justices from both sides expressed skepticism about unchecked executive power. The stakes were massive, not just the future of tariffs, but the very balance of power between Congress and the president. On January 27, 2026, the Supreme Court ruled 6-3 that IEPA does not authorize the president to impose broad tariffs for economic protectionism. Chief Justice Roberts wrote that the power to tax and regulate trade belongs to Congress, not the executive. The decision narrows IEPA's scope, requiring a specific, extraordinary threat, not just trade imbalances. Dissenters warned the ruling could limit future presidents' ability to respond to global threats, but the majority held firm. The government now faces the daunting task of unwinding the tariffs and potentially refunding $130 billion to affected businesses. Trump's trade agenda has been upended, leaving legal and financial uncertainty in its wake. Financial markets surged on the news, sending a wave of optimism through Wall Street and beyond. The atmosphere on the trading floor was electric, as traders and investors reacted to the unexpected development with cheers and high fives. For many, it was a sign that stability might be returning to an economy rattled by months of uncertainty and volatile policy shifts. Major stock indices, including the S&P 500 and Dow Jones, rallied sharply, posting some of their biggest single-day gains in recent memory. The surge reflected renewed confidence among investors, who saw the ruling as a green light for more predictable and transparent trade policy moving forward. Across the country, business professionals and everyday investors alike watched the news unfold, hopeful that the era of abrupt policy changes and market shocks might be coming to an end. Many expressed relief, believing that a more stable environment would help businesses plan for the future and encourage economic growth. In Washington, Democratic lawmakers wasted no time in celebrating the court's decision, hailing it as a major victory for the rule of law and a crucial check on executive power. At press conferences and on the steps of the Capitol, they emphasized the importance of upholding constitutional principles and protecting the balance of power. Meanwhile, Republicans and White House officials condemned the ruling, calling it a politically motivated attack designed to undermine the administration's agenda. They argued that the decision would weaken America's ability to negotiate strong trade deals and protect domestic industries. President Trump, never one to shy away from a fight, took to social media almost immediately. In a series of posts, he lashed out at the court, the opposition, and even some members of his own party, vowing not to back down. He promised his supporters that he would continue to fight, exploring every possible legal avenue to restore his trade policy. Trump's defiant tone at rallies and press conferences made it clear that he saw this as just another battle in a much larger war. Among the options on the table was invoking the Trade Act of 1974, a decades-old law that has been used in the past to impose tariffs and restrict imports. Legal experts, however, cautioned that using this route would require navigating a complex web of congressional approvals and oversight. The administration's options are now more limited than ever, with Congress poised to play a much larger role in shaping future trade policy. Lawmakers from both parties signaled that they would closely scrutinize any new proposals, ensuring that no single branch could act unilaterally. This shift means less unilateral power for the executive branch and a renewed emphasis on checks and balances within the federal government. Behind the scenes, White House officials and legal advisors scrambled to assess their next steps, poring over documents and strategizing late into the night. The pressure was on to craft a response that would satisfy both the president and his political base. But with the Supreme Court's decision, Trump's signature trade policy was effectively dismantled, marking a dramatic turning point in the administration's approach to international commerce. The ruling not only overturned years of executive action but also placed significant constraints on the president's ability to act alone in the future. As the dust settles, one thing is clear: the political and legal battles over America's trade policy are far from finished. Both sides are gearing up for the next round, with the nation's economic future hanging in the balance. For American businesses, the ruling lifts a major financial burden: no more 10% tariffs on imports, and the possibility of refunds for billions already paid. Companies can now plan with more certainty, but many have already restructured supply chains at great cost. Changes that won't be easily reversed. Sectors like auto manufacturing may benefit, while domestic steel and aluminum producers lose protection. The decision restores a measure of predictability, allowing business leaders to invest and hire with greater confidence. Yet, the scars of tariff-driven disruption remain, and the threat of future trade volatility lingers. The Supreme Court's stance on executive power gives businesses a firmer foundation for the future. The real impact of the tariffs was felt by American families, who paid higher prices on everything from appliances to groceries. The Supreme Court's decision should gradually ease this pressure, as import costs fall and retailers pass on savings. However, price drops won't be immediate. Some retailers may keep prices high and supply contracts take time to adjust. The tariffs also reduce consumer choice, as some foreign products disappeared from shelves and companies switched to costlier alternatives. Industry leaders like Elon Musk criticized the tariffs for stifling innovation and raising costs for renewable energy. The ruling promises not just lower prices, but a return to greater variety and competition for consumers. Analysts agree the Supreme Court's decision is a major course correction, limiting the president's ability to use trade as a unilateral weapon. The ruling reasserts Congress's authority and brings stability to U.S. and global markets. Economists widely criticize the tariffs as a regressive tax that hurt consumers and exporters alike. While some warn that trade volatility is here to stay, most see the decision as restoring crucial legal guardrails. Businesses are now more focused on building resilient supply chains, aware that global trade risks remain. Trump's threats to use other laws are being watched closely, but these offer less power and more oversight. The debate over trade isn't over, but the rules have fundamentally changed. The Supreme Court's landmark decision marks the beginning of a transformative era for American trade and politics, sending ripples through every level of government and industry. This ruling doesn't just close a chapter, it opens a complex new one, filled with both uncertainty and opportunity. The immediate challenge is immense. Officials must now unwind years of tariffs, a process that involves not only refunding billions of dollars to importers, but also untangling a web of regulations and agreements that have shaped global commerce. For businesses, this means recalibrating supply chains that have been built around tariff barriers, renegotiating contracts, and updating pricing strategies to reflect a rapidly changing landscape. Retailers and manufacturers alike are bracing for a period of adjustment as they work to restore stability and predictability to their operations. Meanwhile, government agencies face a massive administrative task: processing claims, revising customs procedures, and ensuring compliance with the new legal framework. The scale of this bureaucratic effort is unprecedented, requiring coordination across multiple departments and agencies. Politically, the decision has ignited fresh debate. Trump's defiance in the face of the ruling signals that the fight is far from over, and that he may seek new avenues, perhaps invoking other statutes or executive powers, to pursue his trade agenda and rally his base. Legal experts warn that this could set the stage for further legal battles, as the boundaries of presidential authority are tested and redefined. The coming months may see a flurry of executive actions and court challenges, each shaping the contours of American governance. For Congress, this is a pivotal moment, a rare opportunity to reassert its constitutional authority over trade policy. Lawmakers are now under pressure to clarify the rules, restore checks and balances, and ensure that no single branch holds unchecked power over the nation's economic future. The balance of power between the executive, legislative, and judicial branches is being put to the test, with lasting implications for how America governs itself. Around the world, international partners are watching closely, analyzing every move and statement from Washington. Many hope this signals a shift toward greater diplomacy, predictability, and stability in global trade relations. Diplomatic channels are opening as allies and rivals alike seek to understand how the U.S. will engage on the world stage in the aftermath of this decision. Ultimately, this Supreme Court ruling is about far more than tariffs. It's about the fundamental rules that govern the global economy, the principles of fair competition, and the responsibilities of leadership in a connected world. At its core, it's a test of the limits of presidential power, and a reminder that the Constitution remains the ultimate arbiter of American law and policy. The aftershocks of this decision will reverberate through American policy, business, and global markets for years to come, shaping the next chapter in the story of international trade and governance.